In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to make homemade pasta. Homemade pasta begins by separating our eggs. We're going to separate the whites from the yolk. We're going to be using 6 egg yolks. You'll want to keep those egg whites and use those for something else in a different day. We're also going to be using flour. You can use all-purpose flour or 00 flour. I'm using 00 flour today. And just a quick word about flours. The difference between an all-purpose flour and a 00 flour, which is an Italian flour, is really 2 things. The grind. So Italian 00 flour tends to be a lot finer. It's a very fine grind. It also has a little bit less protein than all-purpose. All-purpose has usually between 10 to 12% protein, and a 00 flour is going to have a little bit less, between 8 to 12%. 00 is also perfect for pizza if you like that chewy pizza base. So from here, it's very simple. We're just going to give our flour and salt a good mix, and then go ahead and start adding in those eggs. We're using a food processor. I'm just using the food processor attachment to my Ninja. I also have a regular food processor that I've made this recipe in as well. If you don't have a food processor, you can certainly do it the old-fashioned way, which is to make a well with your flour. So just take a piece of parchment, dump your flour onto the parchment, make a little well in the center of the flour, put your egg yolks into the center, take a fork, whisk those egg yolks together, and then slowly start to incorporate those yolks and a little bit of water into the flour, just by scooping, towards the middle, the flour towards the middle of those eggs, and incorporate it with the fork to the point where you can't really do that anymore and you need to use your hands. Then you'll go ahead and start to mix with your hands. So with the food processor, I'm just adding a little bit of water. This is going to be one of those things where you need to look at the consistency, and we just want this dough to come together. So you just want to add enough water so that the dough comes together. It will be sticky. And you'll also notice, going back to the 00 flour versus the all-purpose flour, the 00 flour is going to have a lot more stretch in it than the all-purpose flour. So when it comes to making, pasta and pizza, just having that extra spring is always good. So just keep checking the consistency. I will say that a traditional food processor is a lot easier to use than the Ninja, just because you can see through the top. But I like the compact size of this. It's just, it's quick and easy for this amount of dough. And, if you want, you could add 1 tablespoon of your water at a time and then check. You just want it to really come together. So you can see that the dough is very craggly. It's not a smooth dough. So this is what you're looking for. We're just going to dump all of this out of our food processor. I've got a piece of parchment down. I find that that is the easiest to work on when you're first, working the dough. Add a little bit of flour to this, and then I just want to get that stickiness down. So once I get that stickiness down, then I'm actually going to transfer it over to my wooden cutting board, my block, and then I will start to knead it over there. I just want to get that tackiness down. You could put a Silpat underneath, and then your parchment won't slide around. Of course, you can also do this, the whole thing on the wood block. But I like to transfer it to the wood block because then I have sort of a size to work with. I'm gonna, roll my dough out to the size of my board. And you'll see that in a later step. So just go through and knead it. Just use the heel of your hand. You know, work that flour in. This is a beautiful dough. It's very soft. And once you've given it some good kneading attention, just roll it into a ball. And we're going to put some saran wrap on this. It's important to let it rest for 30 minutes before we begin to do anything with it. So any type of plastic wrap is perfect. Leave it at room temperature. This is also a dough that freezes beautifully, so if you're at the point where you are not ready to use it, you could divide it out and put it in Ziploc bags and freeze it. Just make sure you let it completely thaw at room temperature and then knead it again and let it sit up for another 30 minutes.